Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. Delighted and excited to meet my new good friend, Dr. Cynthia Smith. And I got to give a big shout out to Desiree Benson, who helped put us in touch. She came all the way in from Jacksonville, Florida, where she is leading a STEM school, and she just has been so fervent about education that we wanted to really sort of bring her story literally from the east to the west. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You have been just such a fervent inspiration when it comes to education and just even in your own pathway, moving all the way up to the doctorate degree. Talk to us about sort of the importance of that. I know the doctorate is in education or organizational leadership. What that means, because that's a lot of work, and you did that with the family, the job, the whole nine going on.
It is. It started, honestly, right after high school, the high school that I graduated from. When I received my bachelor's degree, it was in psychology and sociology. So my path was not even to be an educator. It was to be a psychologist one day. And but I saw the need for great educators, for passionate educators. So the first educational teaching job that I took was at the high school that I graduated from. From that, I just became stuck, or I felt that maybe I wasn't stuck. After a while, it became a passion for me to work with children and to educate them, because I felt like every child needed a hero in their life, and a lot of them did not have that person that they could lean on and trust and talk to, and just be more than a teacher to them. So after being a teacher for about 7 or 8 years, I decided to move into leadership. And so I started out working in the public school system as an educator, meaning that I was a teacher, then an administrator. And I had said one day that this is what I love to do. And not saying that the public school system I was working for wasn't great, but I felt that I had a greater need to touch more lives, and I opened up the first free private STEM school in Jacksonville, Florida, on the east side.
Sure.
An area that I grew up in.
Right. And initially, if I'm not mistaken, you had sort of those first few years, like pre-K to maybe second grade or something like that.
Yes, and I focus heavily on pre-K through second grade, because I believe that if children foundations are laid for them, then that will lead them a long life learning of loving education as much as I did. I think back to my education, and when I was in pre-K first and second grade, that was really the foundation. That's where I learned the basic shapes, colors, and numbers.
Right.
So once I got into the intermediate grade secondary education, my foundation was laid. I loved education because I had fun learning it, and I was also challenged, and I was taught to love it.
Sure. Got it. And so, and if I'm not mistaken, not every pathway is paved with gold. You all experienced a fire and then had to sort of pivot and rebuild somewhere else and sort of almost essentially start from scratch.
I did start from scratch, literally. So what happened at my first facility, I had over 150 students in that facility, and then there was a lot of construction and things like that, also with rebuilding the actual neighborhood that I was in. So because of that, I ended up having to I had to close and move over pretty much a weekend and figure out what I was going to do. Luckily, because I truly believe that what I do, not only do I have passion for it, but I want to see the children succeed. My students were able to move with me, a lot of them across town into another neighborhood. So that was huge for me. So we did have to rebuild, but I had a lot of support from the community, had a lot of support from parents, and they just really believed in what it is that I was doing for their children.
Sure. Your life has been about giving. Where do you draw some of that inner strength from yourself when sometimes literally the day doesn't seem quite as bright as most days in Florida are?
It's very true. I look at what's around me. I look at where I came from. I didn't always have a strong upbringing, but I do believe when I look back over my life, I always had an education. And that was something that I told myself, once I get an education, that is something that no one could take from me. I think about the time that when I do want to give up, I think about when I went to college, how I didn't fit in, how I didn't understand how to pass classes, how I didn't understand how to study and or even communicate in a group effectively. So I think about those things. Then I look at the TV stars, and my biggest motivator is Oprah Winfrey. I love the way that she gives back to education. I love the way that she loves education and educating not only students, but she just educate communities. And so that is definitely, a dream of mine to continue to do and to continue to expand more STEM schools, because I do believe, from research, teaching kids to think creatively.
Yes.
Is very important. We're adults and we're not cookie cutter learners on how we do things. And so I truly believe that, the stigma behind all students and teaching students to go to college. I went to college and I earned a doctorate degree. But students growing up today, they may not be interested in college, but I want to give them another path, a brighter path to understand that they can too be successful without a college degree. So all those things are just motivation for me when I feel like things are challenging or I feel like I want to give up.
STEM schools and charter schools in our community are still somewhat of a new thing.
Oh.
And so what words of advice or encouragement might you give to that family that's trying to understand the pros and cons of maybe pulling their kid out of a public school system if they're already enrolled?
I just truly believe that parents know their children best.
Right.
I do believe that touring schools, just as if we would tour colleges, is just as important. I believe that what fits best for one child doesn't fit best for the next one. So, families that have maybe multiple children and everybody go to the same school, it may not work out for them. But I do believe that, them doing that, I'm a huge proponent of research. So I truly believe that parents should also research and find out what fits best for their child, what environment fits best for their child. Some children really benefit from small learning environments,
Right.
Literally small learning environments. Some students benefit from one-on-one, and some students benefit from learning through technology, not necessarily a teacher sitting in front of their face teaching them or standing in front of a board. So I truly believe that if parents, and that's what I spend a lot of time doing in my neighborhood and in other neighborhoods. Every time I'm given opportunity on a platform, I'm encouraging parents to be, it's one thing to encourage parents to be involved, but I truly believe it's a way that you have to teach parents how to be involved as well. So I think about, again, my experience when I first went to the University of North Florida. I had to learn how to study.
Right.
My teacher telling me, take notes. I took notes. I wrote down everything he or she said at the board, but when I got home, I could not translate it to understand how that helps me. So it's the same thing with parents and with their children. They have to take the time and they have to understand, as educators, I believe that we have to teach them and show them what is best and how to actually know what's best for their child.
Sure. Even here in California and certainly in Florida, there continues to be a hotbed of controversy on a lot of topics when it comes to children's education. How do you help guide parents through that as a leader, and then also even just your teachers and your students?
Yeah, so one of the things that I do with Florida, you hear a lot about conferences and or events that are occurring for educators to be a part of. And there are trainings, and those trainings really help navigate some of those political issues and issues that are brought forth. One of the hottest topics in Florida right now is the African American history piece and all of those things. Although I have a private school and we are not per se under those guidelines of the public and charter, I still am involved in them. So one of the things that I am doing is I'll be going to Tallahassee to speak on partnerships and community involvement from a parent's perspective, so that we can bring together educators and parents on issues as such to actually come to a common ground to understand how to actually tackle those political issues that arise, because a lot of times, I hold community meetings all the time, and so a lot of times parents, you don't want to use those community meetings and times as a gripe session. You want to be able to use them as a means to come together for solutions for children. And so every platform, every training, every time I consult, I make sure that it's important to know that the decisions that we make are truly for children. And I try to use that as a guideline to come to solutions on topics that are pretty, touchy or hot in the community.
Sure, absolutely. Where do you draw some of your inner strength from when you need to step away from the camera and step away from podiums and speaker bureaus and things like that, to try to continue to press on? Because it's a lot to sort of lead and certainly to carry a school.
It is. I think my downtime or my inner strength is really my family, because they're getting. I don't think they're completely comfortable, but they're getting comfortable with, the school. I also do, like I told you, consulting on an event space. And then I'm also an author where I am writing a book for other entrepreneurs that are interested in entrepreneurship. So I just find time with spending with my family. I look at I have a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old. And for me, I want them to be able to look at me and to understand how important it is to be educated in any avenue. Right now, my son is 16. He'll be looking at colleges and going on college tours. But we've also had the realistic conversation of, do you want to go to college? And that's a little hurtful for me if he didn't want to, obviously, because I've had, 8 years plus of education and, in college. So I want him to be able to get that experience. So I do believe, I find that inner strength through my children, my husband, who's very supportive of everything that I'm doing. A lot of times they find out things when they see me on the TV screen. So, but it's not a challenge, because I said that when I did go into entrepreneurship, it would be something that I enjoy doing. I wouldn't see it as a stressor. I would not see it as a challenging piece of work for me to do every single day. I actually find joy in it. So a lot of times it is also something that I enjoy and find excitement in.
Sure. Where can we find you and about your work, and for those that maybe want to know more about your school?
Yes, drsmithjacks.com has all of the avenues to me on there, whether it is through my Instagram, social media, or the website pretty much will lead you right to the school as well, which is Minds of the Future Academy in Jacksonville, Florida.
Sure. And in parting, if there were some words of encouragement that you might have for a young person just like yourself who is just about on the cusp of delivering their dissertation and getting ready to sort of embark on this world with a PhD in hand, what types of tools might you encourage them to be armed with?
It is just one quote that has literally gotten me through everything in life, even when I've second-guessed myself, even when I thought that I could not do it, or even when I had hesitation about making a decision. It's very simple, and it's in my office. You miss 100% of the shots you do not take. Take that shot, get it done, and if you don't get it done, at least you know you took the shot.
Sure, absolutely. Nothing beats a trial but a failure. So it's what my mom used to always say. So
Yeah.
no, I mean, it's been a pleasure. I love
Thank you.
your sincerity,
Thank
and
you.
it's clear your passion, not only for people, but for education and students
Thank
in
you.
particular, is something that we pray and hope for in all kids. We
Yeah.
know they're definitely our future, and it's good to know that not only have you done your homework and gotten your degree, and you have the education to sort of back it up, but you're literally putting the work, every single day, and it's a hard labor of love, to say the least, in these days and times. It's a lot to give, and clearly your family also is part of that sacrifice. So
It is.
we appreciate they're behind you,
Yes.
but also that we've got you in our corner.
Thank you.
A pleasure
Thank
to meet
you.
you. Sure.
Thank you.
Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis.